And the NFL draft is officially over. It is time for my grades, my reactions, and what I think about every pick. There were some very unexpected trades that kind of creeped in out of nowhere. There were some really fun selections and some selections that I wasn't quite as big of a fan of. So I'm excited to get into that. And let's just get right into it. It is currently 11:59 p.m where I live in Central Standard Time. I am allowed to skip school tomorrow, so that's good. I'm not going to have to go to school on 5 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep. And without further ado, let's get right into the grades. So, first overall pick, what everybody expected, Cam Ward went to the Tennessee Titans. This is a B plus for me. If you watched my short that I did on this, I talked about the first six selections, I believe, and then I stopped because people stopped viewing them, and I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. But Cam Ward, if you believe he can be your franchise quarterback, this is absolutely the right pick. This is the right direction. However, I have some reserves with that, and also the Giants offered you number three, another first, and more picks to move all the way up a grand total of two spots. And I think the value of that is something you can't neglect. And that's what the Browns saw as well. So Cam Ward, B plus, and if he works out, it's an A plus. I mean, if you get a quarterback that works out in the first round, it's automatically a A plus, unless you're like Deshaun Watson. So yeah, there's number one. Now number two, I almost said the Cleveland Browns, but no, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected Travis Hunter after trading from five. They gave up pick five. They gave up the 35th pick in the draft. They gave up a fourth, and they gave up their first round pick next year. This is going to be an A selection. This is a guy who I think is maybe the best pure prospect in this entire draft. I That's who I'm leaning right now over Abdul Carter. He's a guy who really just pops off the screen when you watch him, not only at receiver but at corner as well. And from what I've seen, Jacksonville's going to let him play both positions, and from what I've seen, maybe even full time. I'm really interested to see how this works out, and can he become the Shohei Ohtani of football? I'd love to see that. He's just such a good player, especially on that offensive end. He's so developed as a route runner and as a receiver. He was my number one receiver. If you're counting him as a receiver, he was my number one guy. Number three, Abdul Carter to the New York Giants. I gave this an A minus in the end because he's one of the best players in the draft. It's at three. It's not necessarily a huge position of need. Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't lived up necessarily to the hype that you necessarily wanted, but you already have Dexter Lawrence, you have Brian Burns, and you have Kayvon Thibodeau on that defensive line. But that's a really, really scary group with the addition of a guy like an Abdul Carter. I think this can really work out, and I'd like to see what he can do on that defensive line with guys like Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns. Next up, the New England Patriots select Will Campbell, the offensive tackle out of LSU. I gave this a B plus. Here's why. Will Campbell was not the best player available. He just wasn't, in my opinion. I Guys I would take ahead of Will Campbell just purely off talent. Mason Graham, Ashton Genty, Colson Loveland, Michael Williams, Tyler Warren, Jalen Walker, Jahad Campbell, Malachi Starks, Jade Barron, and maybe Matthew Golden. But with that being said, I know that I don't like picking need over value. I'm an adamant proponent of that is not good. I know that's kind of contradictory to what I said with the Giants, but I think A minus is fair for them. Um, but it's such a need for the Patriots, and it's not just a need for just the offensive line, but you got to protect your quarterback. You have your future face of the franchise, you have your guy. You need protect him. You cannot allow for a guy like a Drake May to be left unprotected, and you're bringing in a, at best, an elite left side protector, and at worst, a really good guard in the league. This is a guy where I see a high floor but a low ceiling. I don't necessarily see him reaching that elite blind. Oh, sorry, I can't talk right now. But we're going in one take. Blind side protector on that left side for Drake May, but there is a possibility that he's a really good left tackle in this league. Next up, the Cleveland Browns, after trading all the way down from 2 to number 5, get Mason Graham. This is an A plus for me. I understand that you're missing out on Travis Hunter, potentially the best player in this entire draft class. I get it. But if you're the Browns and you're looking at that roster, does adding Travis Hunter make you a title contender in the next year or two? I don't think it does. It definitely doesn't. So you look at it, why not accumulate value? Build in the trenches, start to build a competitive team before taking, let's face it, Travis Hunter, who, with playing receiver and defensive back, he's going to be more injured. I'm not going to say he'd be on the same timetable as a running back, but there's certainly a lot of injury risk with Travis Hunter. And by the time a lot of his value's gone, will you be ready to compete? I don't know. But now you're getting a first, a second, a fourth, and a first next year out of it. And a guy who I think is a top 5 player in this draft in Mason Graham. He's not the flashy pick, he's not the sexy pick, but he is a guy who he wreaks havoc on the interior of the defensive line. It doesn't show up on the stats, but he makes play after play, and he really, really impacts that offense, not only through the run game, but also through the pass game. Next up, the Las Vegas Raiders select Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. I give this an A minus because Ashton Jeanty is an A plus prospect. He's phenomenal. But the positional value of running back and the Raiders' needs, I don't think their timetable necessarily completely fits in with taking a running back at 6. I think that this is a good team, but I don't think they can be a championship contender in the next 3 or 4 years. And who knows, by year 5 or by year 6, Ashton Jeanty and his value might be worn down a little bit more. So I don't think you're maximizing the potential here. I probably would have taken a guy like an Armand Membu over him, but I love Ashton Jeanty as a prospect, and I think this is a good pick, and Pete Carroll will be very happy with being able to run his running system the way he wants it. Next up, the New York Jets take Armand Membu, the tackle out of Missouri. I give this an A because if you're looking at that offensive line, it is mostly all complete with a bunch of quite young talent. You have guys like Olu Fashanu, who you drafted last year, and you got oh shoot, you got the guard from USC. I forgot his name. They took him in 2021. Forgot his name. They got Joe Tippmann, and I believe they also have John Simpson, who's a pretty good guard as well. And you bring in Justin Fields. You have those 3 backs in Brees Hall, and then you got the 2 other second year guys. I'm forgetting the names right now. I'm sorry. I think one of them is Isaiah Wilson, maybe. Can't remember. But they're a team that I think under Aaron Glenn will want to ground and pound and run it. They have Justin Fields now, and I think protecting him with this offensive line and a group of guys that can really run block, I think this is a great unit, and this really helps the Jets kind of get their identity and be who they want to be. Okay, next up. This was one of my lower grades in the entire draft. The Carolina Panthers selecting Tedero McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. I sort of delved into the tape of some of these receivers. I looked at guys like Matthew Golden, Travis Hunter, Tedero McMillan, Luther Burden, and Emeka Ibuka. From what I saw, Tedero McMillan was my least favorite of all those guys. Now, I'm not saying I'm accurate. I'm not a scout. I don't even play football. That's not what I'm claiming to be. But just the explosiveness, I don't see it. I think a lot of these other guys have it over him. Really, everybody except for maybe Emeka Ibuka. And the thing with Emeka Ibuka, I think he's just a more reliable guy than Tedero McMillan. I think there are times where I'm gonna be kind of contradictory to what the analysts say, but from what I saw, he when the ball's coming towards him, I see a lack of concentration sometimes. And that makes me worried in the red zone because there are some good clips where he gets the separation and he gets concentrated and he gets the ball in his hands and it's good. But there are other times where it's the ball's right in his hands and he drops it. Or he's open, he has space. He's just not concentrated enough on the ball and loses it. And the Panthers do need a true X receiver. This is a guy where you're trying to help Bryce Young, who really came on at the end of last year. But this defense is atrocious. And you have guys available here like a Michael Williams, like a Tyler Warren. No, not Tyler Warren. Why did I say that? Like a Jalen Walker. You like even down the board, if you wanted to take Jahad Campbell, who I know went 31, we'll get to that later. And then there's just other guys that I think make more sense here than Tedero McMillan. Even a Kelvin Banks really makes more sense to me than Tedero McMillan, but it's not a terrible pick. I don't absolutely hate it. I know I'm making it sound like I kind of do, but Tedero McMillan, if he can achieve that real true number one X receiver that a bunch of people see, I think he can absolutely be worth this pick. Next up, the New Orleans Saints at 9 get their right tackle of the future, I believe, in Kelvin Banks Jr. This is a guy who really helped turn around the culture in Texas. He won the Best Tackle of the Year award in college football, and he's really just a very solid guy. I think he's going to be a great guy. And this is a New Orleans offensive line who's drafted 4 linemen in the 2020s. Same with the New York Jets. But I think this is a good group, and I think you got to protect whoever your signal caller is going to be next year or the year after. I personally think there's a chance that they draft Arch Manning and he goes back to New Orleans. I think that would be an absolute just that would be a true narrative. Arch Manning goes where Archie Manning played. I think that's where the league script's tending to go right now. But that would be fun to see. And Kelvin Banks is just going to be a good piece. I'd be interested to see who starts at left tackle. I imagine it would be um, Talisa Fuaga, but there is a possibility where Fuaga slides to the right and Kelvin slides to the left. Okay, Colston Loveland to the Chicago Bears at 10. I gave this a B plus. I made a prediction. Me and my dad, we wrote down some of the crazy things that we could see happening in this draft. And my first thing that I wrote down, Colson Loveland's going to go before Tyler Warren. Because we've been hearing this the whole process. Some teams just like Colson Loveland and his skill set more than Tyler Warren and his. And we've heard it's a little more, it's a little closer to 50-50 than what you might expect. Well, and nobody ever had the balls or the guts to put Colson Loveland above Tyler Warren in their mock drafts, including me. However, it happened. The reports were right. Teams do actually think Colson is better than Tyler Warren because what I've heard recently is teams don't see all world potential with a guy like a Tyler Warren, but they could see Colson Loveland turning into an all world receiving tight end threat. And when you're looking at that not the Colts tight end room, when you're looking at the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson, they already have Cole Kmet, but they can run 12 personnel. And with that, you would have, as of right now, which this can always change, specifically the running back position, but you would have Caleb Williams at your quarterback. You have you would have DeAndre Swift, you would have DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Colson Loveland, Cole Kmet, and then you got that revamped offensive line. I think this offense is going to be dynamic next year, and this is a good pick for the Chicago Bears. B plus. I don't know if I said this, but the Kelvin Banks pick was a B last time. I might have forgotten to say that. 11. The San Francisco 49ers select Michael Williams. I'm kind of mad at myself. I gave this an A because for the whole process, I was adamant. Michael Williams is going to go before Jalen Walker. Teams want the prototypical size of 6'5", 265 frame. They want that over a guy who's 6'2", 245. You want a team full of prototypical guys with the potential, not the anomalies and or the exceptions, I might say. And then reports were like, he could go as high as 6. He could go 7 to the Jets. He's definitely going to go 8 to the Panthers if they stick and pick there. And then I gave in. But Michael Williams, he is a freak athlete, born in the lab to play the edge rusher position. He is like I already said, 6'5", 265. Perfect guy to put on that opposite side of Nick Bosa, and I think that could be a dynamic duo. Very scary for the opposing quarterbacks. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys. They get a position of need guy, a culture guy, and Tyler Booker. Zach Martin just retired this last year. He's going to be a Hall of Fame guard, and you need a replacement. Everybody was saying this is going to be a skill guy here, and they probably would have taken Tedero McMillan, but Tyler Booker is not a bad option. I think he's a really good guard, and this just solid pick. B for me. Next up, we got Kenneth Grant out of Michigan going to the Miami Dolphins. This was not the first surprise. Tedero McMillan and the Travis Hunter trade were definitely bigger surprises than this. But Kenneth Grant kind of surprised me here at Miami at 13 because I projected Walter Nolan to go above Kenneth Grant here at 13. And I thought there was potential for Kenneth Grant to be the player that slides all the way down to the Eagles inevitably, and they just scoop up another elite guy. That turned out to be Jahad Campbell. I know I've already referenced this, but we will get to that later. Um, and I think I think Grant is a good player. He is what 6'3", 330 and moves at like a 5'1" 40 pace. He's insane. He has explosiveness, and that's exactly why he went higher than most people see. I don't hate this pick at all. I think there were maybe some more pressing needs on this Miami team, specifically offensive line and secondary. I think secondary could have been very achievable here. I think trading back with a Denver or somebody to maybe get draft capital for someone wanting to get Tyler Warren ahead of the Colts might have been a better move than take like a Jade Barron or a Nick Eamon Warrior or Malachi Starks later. But I don't hate this pick, and I think he'll be really good for the Miami Dolphins. We're moving slow. It's 12:20 already. Um, but hey, you're getting some deep analysis, not too deep, but you're getting some good thoughts from me, a 15-year-old who does not watch very much tape and just absorbs what he hears. So I guess this is a good breakdown. I hope so. Hope it's at least entertaining. Next up, the Indianapolis Colts at 14. They get Tyler Warren. This was a pick where it was Tyler Warren here for what, 3, 4, 5, 6 months? And it just he got pushed up, and then people were like, "Yeah, this is the absolute floor for him. I don't think he'll get here, but if he does, miraculously, he'll go here." And look at it, miracles happen. He fell all the way to 14, and I think this is a great pick. Initially, it was an A plus for me. I do have some reservations on tight ends this early, but I am going to give it an A. I just got rid of the plus because I had a little too many A pluses in this. I believe we have three more left. We have one so far. I didn't want six A pluses because I had another guy I also removed the plus from. I'll talk about that guy in the next pick. So yeah, I think Tyler Warren, you got to give Anthony Richardson your weapon. I think you have to see if he can be your franchise quarterback with more weapons. Because if you're looking at that Indianapolis offense, it's not a ton of weapons. It's not like it's their fault that he overthrows them by 20 yards. But I mean, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, they're good players. They drafted Adonai Mitchell. He didn't do much, but he's good. And then you look at that tight end room. It's like, oh, is Mo Alley Cox the guy you rely on the most in that group? Ugh. I mean, that's not necessarily what you want in a guy like a Tyler Warren. He's a bowling ball. He can do a lot. You saw the versatility in that tape they played where it showed him being a basketball player, a quarterback, among other things. So he can do it all. And that is a good pick for the Indianapolis Colts at pick 14. Next up, the Atlanta Falcons. Originally, this was an A plus because I love Jalen Walker. I think he can be really good, and you're keeping him home. He went to high school in Georgia, went to college in Georgia, and now he's playing pros in Atlanta. So Jalen Walker here, I think they had a desperate need for edge rush, and this is a guy where in the modern day NFL where everybody's blitzing from everywhere, he can be a very versatile piece. I expect them not to play him full time at edge rusher, just to mix in some of those spots where he's up here playing outside linebacker. It looks like he's going to drop into coverage, and then last second, he scoots up on the line. And we saw this at Georgia. Everything changes. As soon as Jalen Walker gets on the line, you got the center, you got the captain of that offensive line calling out adjustments, getting new things. Maybe the running backs coming into pass pro now. A lot can happen when Jalen Walker is on that line. And if he's a pure edge rusher as well, I think he has great burst. I think he shows great finesse. And I think this is a spot that's not only a desperate, desperate need from the Falcons, which we saw where they traded back up into the late first for James Pierce, another edge rusher. I think this was a great pick for them. Sorry, we're doing this one take. I'm not cutting that out. Um, Next up, the Arizona Cardinals select Walter Nolan. This is a guy where there are some character concerns. Started at Texas A&M, went to Walter. He didn't go to Walter Nolan. He went to Ole Miss. Sorry, and then he really showed out. He had 6.5 sacks last year. He just needs to be more consistent. He needs to be on the field more. And if Arizona can get that out of him, he's going to be a great player for them because he is the type of guy who can really, really, really disrupt that offensive line. And when he's at his A game, there's not many other people that can do it like he can. Next up, the Cincinnati Bengals select Shamar Stewart. This is a pick I gave a B plus. This is a team that desperately needs defensive linemen. Maybe you want a guy who can maybe produce a little bit more in the short term, but it's not like Shamar Stewart's a bad defensive end slash edge guy in the present. This is a guy where, yeah, he didn't have the production, but like Nick Saban said it on the ABC telecast, he's a guy where when it starts, he's ferocious. He gets there and he continues playing with that energy. He just can't really finish and get past that first level or get to the next level and um, tackling either the quarterback or the running back or just disrupting the play. He doesn't do that too often, which is weird for a guy with his measurables. But I think this is the potential of Shamar Stewart here is something you have to gamble on. Next up, the Seattle Seahawks select Gray Zabel. I'm gonna give this an A minus. This was a desperate position of need. I honestly did not think that they would go this direction. I thought they were going to take either an edge rusher or a just a trench guy. I think they would have probably taken Shamar Stewart if he were there. But I think this is what you need to do. This is the smart thing. This is not the, oh, hey, look, there's a flashy edge rusher. Or, oh, hey, look, we can go get a true number one receiver. And we have two slot receivers in JSN and Cooper Cup. This is a look at, well, we need a guy here. And this guy showed out at the Senior Bowl. He can be in the same vein as guys like Graham Barton, Quinn Minarez, or whatever his name is. You can be in that same vein of those small school guys that went to the Senior Bowl and showed out, and he looked like a great offensive guard there. And I think he can slot right in for the Seattle Seahawks and really help Sam Darnold, who in Minnesota had a ton of protection and also had a lot of pieces to help him succeed. And that's something that he's going to need more of in Seattle if he wants to do the same thing and replicate his season that he had in Minnesota. Okay. Emeka Abuka to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I was a little torn on this one because he's a player where I really like Emeka Abuka. Just consistency of solid or consistency of solid. Hmm. Haven't heard of that term before. He's a guy who is consistent. He will they were saying it on the telecast. He is just a guy who he can be a number two. He can be a number three. He's going to go out there and he's not going to complain. He's going to run his routes really efficiently and he is going to just be a difference maker. He's going to be that slot weapon and or he can play in the slot, he can play on the outside, he can play a little bit of both. He's a guy where he's really versatile. With that being said, you have Chris Godwin, you have Mike Evans. I know those guys are a little older. You just paid Chris Godwin the bag, and you have that receiver out of Alabama, out of Washington that you took last year, one of the Jalen's that I really like. I know a third rounder is not gonna stop you from taking a first round guy that you really like, but I think there were other guys I would have preferred here. Jahad Campbell, I don't know what the injury situation with Jahad is. I look at Jade Barron, the pick right after, as a guy where I'm like, yeah, that looks like something I would have done there. Um, even like Matthew Golden over Emeka Ibuka. That's part of why my this was initially a C plus for me because I think he'll be really good. So I had to bump it up, but there's just other players I think could have been better. I think Matthew Golden's amazing. I'll get to that at 23 to the Packers, but I just think would have rather taken Matthew Golden. Would have rather taken a guy like I said, a Jahad Campbell, a Malachi Starks, a Jade Barron. There's other guys I would have rather taken, but I think Emeka Buka will be very good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if you're a fan, you can't complain that much when you're getting a guy of that level that demonstrates that much consistency. Okay, next up, the Denver Broncos. Just complete opposite of where I thought they were going. They went Jade Barron, the cornerback out of Texas. All along, Sean Payton needs his Joker. He loves Colston Loveland. He loves Amarian Hampton. He loves Matthew Golden. He needs this big skill guy to help out his quarterback, Bo Nix. Goes out there, selects Jade Barron. And not complaining because this is a secondary that is really locked down now. They have guys like Pat Surtain, who's the best corner in the league, DPOY. You have guys like Riley Moss out there. You signed Hufunga out of San Francisco. You have Jade Barron now who can play in the nickel. And this is a defense that's really looking a lot better now with additions like Dre Greenlaw and Hufunga. And now you got Jade Barron. This is a good spot. I still think you're looking at that receiver room. It's Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Devon Vele, Audric Estime, Troy Franklin, A.T. Perry. And then your tight end is Evan Ingram on a 2-year deal who's old. Your running back's Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime. Not a great skill group of offensive guys, but I really love Jade Barron. I think he's not a blue chip talent per se, but he's in that level right under that, I think. And I think that he will be very good for Denver. I thought there was a scenario where they go three skill guys in 3 rounds for the Denver Broncos here, but I definitely don't hate them taking him here, and especially do not hate the talent of Jade Barron. That is an A grade for me. Next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon. This is a guy with a great story. He had an emotional story about his mom on the draft. Um, but this is a guy who's just a beast. He is a culture guy. I know I've said that a decent amount today, but I mean, it's true for a lot of these guys, and that's why you kind of see these guys go high. It's a differentiating factor. If you have two guys on the same level and you like one's attitude and culture better, you're going to take that guy. And I think that's part of the reason why we saw Derek Harmon get off the board at 21. He's really solid. He didn't do much at Michigan State, but he really exploded in that year at Oregon. And I think he can be a really solid piece. And this is a Pittsburgh Steelers team that continues to build through the trenches. And if you want me to comment on why they didn't select Shedur Sanders here, you're gonna have a quarterback to plug in with either a guy like Mason Rudolph if you need to, or it could be a Kirk Cousins, or it could be a Aaron Rodgers. I guess we'll see with that. You have quarterback options for this year. You can build through the trenches, stay elite on that defensive side, and maybe this isn't a move that necessarily sways your season too much, your winning potential, but now that you have DK Metcalf on that offense, you have a little more explosiveness. If you can get a guy like a Kirk Cousins or an Aaron Rodgers to give them the ball and a really good defense, maybe in their minds, that is a championship competing team. Next up, the LA Chargers select Amari and Hampton. They have the duo of Najee Harris and Amari and Hampton now. I think they'd be pretty happy with that. I'm going to give it a B, though, just because of the positional value. And at this spot, I would have rather had Matthew Golden. I know their motto is ground and pound, but you have Najee Harris. I know he's a little slower, and I don't love Najee Harris per se, but I think there's opportunities for in such a deep running back class to get a guy not necessarily at a similar level to Amari and Hampton, but that can have a similar impact on that team and can maybe complement a guy like Najee Harris a little bit better. But I definitely don't hate the Amari and Hampton pick, and this could easily be a B plus A minus for me. But this is just where I'm leaning right now. Next up, the second A plus of the draft. The Green Bay Packers select Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. This is my number one receiver outside of Travis Hunter. The concentration that this guy has on the ball, I fell in love with it. His speed, I don't think it's a true 4.29, but he definitely has. What I mean by that is his mom is a track star. He probably just knows how to get off the blocks really well and get that dive just to shave off the few milliseconds. He might be closer to a 4.33, 4.34 guy in actuality, but still, that's blazing fast. He can be a field stretcher. And what I just love from him, he's a route runner. He can stretch the field. And when he gets down there, like I already said, the concentration on the ball. There were plenty of plays where they were in the red zone, run a 5 yard goal line fade, and just let him work, watch the ball, and then once he gets his hands on the ball, it's not coming out. He has some of the most reliable hands I've seen in this class. I love Matthew Golden, and this is a Packers team that truly needs a number one guy, and I think Matthew Golden can be that. And I really love this pick. He should have gone higher. I personally would have taken him as high as, just looking at the teams, like 12. So him sliding all the way down to 23, really, really good value. A plus pick for the Green Bay Packers. This is next up, the Minnesota Vikings selecting Donovan Jackson. Probably my least favorite pick in the draft. And it's not even anything against Donovan Jackson, but it's you're taking one of the least valuable positions in the league for a guy who is definitely closer to that late first round, early second round range of talent in my eyes. And you're a team that has four first round picks, or not four first round picks, four picks in this whole draft, including this one. Why are you taking a guard? I get that you have to protect your guy in JJ McCarthy, but the very next pick, the Texans traded with the um, Giants, and they got a decent amount. They got a second and 2/3. You know how much that could mean to the Vikings here? And then Nick Eamon is still available. So that's a position of need there. And you're talking about in the second round, you can get Nick Eamon, who maybe you were considering in the first anyway, and an extra third and another one the next year. I think that's a much better haul than just Donovan Jackson, who he was good for Ohio State. I've heard some people call him the MVP of that playoff run because of what he did at the left tackle position when Josh Simmons got injured. But there are other ways I would lean. The second trade of the day. This was a long stretch without a trade, and I did not expect that. I expected chaos for trades in the top 10. Of course, as soon as the Bears GM Ryan Poles says there's going to be a lot of movement in this draft, no movement happens from 2 all the way to 25. But the Houston Texans, they did not get Kelvin Banks or Tyler Booker, who I think were the two guys they were really, really eyeing here. They both went in the top 12. So, not great for them. And then they traded with the New York Giants, who selected Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart, I don't love Jackson Dart. Um, he's very raw. He has the pure arm talent. I'm not sure if he has the touch or the processing ability, but he definitely can. If he gets the processing up and a little bit more of the stuff between the deep ball kind of figured out with that touch, I think he can be a good quarterback. And it's not like you're going to have to play him right away, which makes this a lot better because you're going to have two guys to learn behind in Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. So I think that was a good pick by the Giants, not a great one. I'm gonna go with the C plus. I don't know if I said this. I know I'm forgetting to put the grades. Donovan Jackson was a C minus. I can't remember if I said that or not. Jackson Dart is a C plus, just because he gets to sit behind those guys, and it is. You need a young quarterback in that room, but one of the losers of this draft has to be Tommy DeVito. He's either gonna have to be not on a roster, living in New York, or on a roster not in New York, most likely. Unfortunate, or they'll go with four quarterbacks, which I seriously doubt. Or I guess Jameis Winston could be cut. Who knows? Then this was a pick I didn't get right here. 26, the Houston Texans, not the Houston Texans, the Atlanta Falcons trade with the LA Rams. I'm a Rams fan. To get 26, and they selected James Pierce. I'll start with the Rams side of this real quick. The trade, I loved it. I was like, when it first happened, I'm like, oh, are we gonna get 45 and a second next year to move out? No, no. We got 45 and a first next year. Now we had to give up a third, but if you can get a second and a first out of 26, it's great. And then this is a team who can maybe move up next year to get a quarterback, potentially Arch Manning. That would be great. I don't think any team would be wanting to trade down from that spot, but if there's another quarterback available, like maybe a Drew Aller higher up or got Garrett Nussmeier that you want after Matthew Stafford retires, he's there. Okay, now let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons side of this. You already took Jalen Walker. I know that pass rush is a massive need for this team. However, James Pierce is not a guy that a ton of people saw in the first round. He has the skill. There's a little bit of concern about the football character, and I wouldn't trade a second and a first to move all the way back up to get him. Is the gap really that big between James Pierce and who you could get at 45? It's a pretty big gap, but are you also willing to trade away your first next year? Does getting James Pierce for this year change your title contention this year? Does this make you a candidate to win the NFC this year? I don't think so. Then why would you trade a first round pick away to get this guy? Now, if you're looking at just the pure pros, James Pierce was a guy that I loved going into this year. I thought the power and the speed that he showcased last year was amazing. Some of the concerns, though, he doesn't play a ton of downs. He's more of a designated pass rusher who comes on and off the field, and he does have some stuff he needs to fix up in the run game. So, designated pass rusher at 26, you're trading a first round pick away. On paper, it's not great, but James Pierce does have the skill to potentially prove us all wrong, and he could be a 10 plus, 15 plus sack guy if it all works out. So, we'll see how that works, and I could see this going anyway. I mean, this could be amazing for them, but right now, for what they had to give up for possibly just a designated pass rusher, I don't love it. So C plus. Next up, one of my favorite picks in the draft, Malachi Starks to the Baltimore Ravens. You get him and Kyle Hamilton together. Nobody's going to be able to pass on that deep end. And you're getting one of the best players in the draft at 27. This was a guy who was projected to go in the top 5, top 10 range going into the year, but it just didn't happen quite. He fell off a little bit. Um, he was a little less inconsistent, a little more inconsistent last year, and the safety value just isn't there. But Malachi Starks is one of the best players of this draft. So I think he's kind of in that similar range to Jade Barron, where I said he's not a blue chipper, but he's on that outside range for me. And Malachi Starks might even be in that blue chip range. So love this pick, love this pick for the Baltimore Ravens. And it always feels like them and the Philadelphia Eagles always get these great guys late in the draft, and they don't have to wait. I mean, you look back at the Ravens draft history just in the recent few years. Zay Flowers, he's been great for them. I just forgot. Tyler Linderbaum, he did great for them. You're looking at other guys like Kyle Hamilton just slides to them at 14. Going back to 2018, Lamar Jackson. I mean, you've had some stuff that didn't quite work out as well. Odafe Owe, but some picks really work out for them and they just let their guys fall to them. Next up, the Detroit Lions. I have learned not to judge the Detroit Lions off taking a player who traditionally the positional value isn't there because they find guys that they like character wise, culture wise, and they can fit into their scheme, into their team, onto their defense or their offense. And they're just not afraid to take those guys where traditionally the positional value isn't there. Tyleek Williams is a nose tackle run stopper. And he's a guy where he's maybe the best pure run stopper in this draft. Maybe you can make an argument for Mason Graham or maybe Kenneth Grant ahead of him, but he's definitely up there as one of the best pure run stoppers in this full class at the defensive tackle position. And you're getting him here. Sorry. You're getting him here, and he can really fill in a spot for this team. Ali McNeil's really good, so that confuses me a little bit, but he's more of a pass rusher. He's not the bona fide run stopper that Tyleik Williams can be. And like I said, I can't fully judge them off of what the positional value is because you're looking back at some of their other picks. Running back at 12, Jameer Gibbs, Jack Campbell, linebacker, Sam Laporta, tight end. That's not a traditional value guy. I don't know if I already said Jack Campbell or not. Maybe I did. But Brian Branch, a nickel cornerback safety. And then there's some other guys too that just they fit into a team. And this is a real like a piece of a puzzle for the Lions, and I'm excited to see how they do. This was one of the more like shocking picks to me for some reason. I don't know why I didn't expect Josh Connerly to go here to Washington. I just expected, hey, they got Larry Tunsil. They don't need offensive line. But there was a decent need at offensive line for them, and Josh Connerly fits that well. I just realized I didn't say the grade for Tyleik Williams. Maybe I forgot it for some other people too. Sorry. Um, yeah. Tyleik Williams was a C for me. And then James Pierce, if I mentioned his grade C plus, Josh Connerly B plus. This is a guy where he was a really really solid tackle at Oregon, and protect Jaden Daniels at all costs. Do whatever you have to do, and I really like this pick B plus. I think maybe Jahad Campbell here, maybe Donovan Ezeraku here, maybe Will Johnson here. Maybe those would have been more just flashy picks that I would have liked more. But Josh Connolly is probably the smart pick protecting your guy. Next up, the Buffalo Bills take Maxwell Harrison. The thing with Maxwell Harrison is I like him. The 4.29 speed is great. And this is irrational of me, but the flashbacks, I just have too many flashbacks when I think of him to either Kaiir, not necessarily in the playing style, but in the scenario, Kaiir Elam, which really did not work out for the Bills at all, and a guy like a I don't even know if I want to say this, but Emmanuel Forbes being taken before Christian Gonzalez, referring to in this scenario, Christian Gonzalez would be Will Johnson. But Max Harrison, I don't think he'll be that. I hope not, for sure. He is a fast guy. He's a glue, sticky guy who can stick onto his receiver. He can stop them. And I think he's really great. I think he will help this Buffalo team lock down some of these receivers that they have to face in the AFC North, or no, the AFC East, sorry, with guys like Tyreek Hill, who might not even be there that much longer, Jalen Waddle, and how am I forgetting the teams in the divisions? It's late, guys. I'm sorry. Miami, Buffalo, New England, New York. Garrett Wilson. They got to guard Garrett Wilson. But I think he is a guy where I think he can be really good. Maybe not as good as Will Johnson, but pretty good. Next up, 31, the Eagles. Jahad Campbell. This is one of the best pure values here at 31. This is a guy where I would have expected him to go in that teens range. I've had him as high as 8. I think what he can do as either just a pure off-ball linebacker or an edge, it's amazing. And I think the versatility that he brings, the culture, it's just it's great. I don't even did I say the grade of Max Harrison? I'm sorry. B for Max Harrison. Jahad Campbell, this is an A plus. The value you get, you had to trade up one spot just to ensure you get him, and I think that's fine because you're getting a guy that I believe will be elite. And let's just pull up the Eagles depth chart here for fun. You look at that defense, man. It's a bad group. These are some bad boys. You're looking at him. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Zach Bond, N'Kobe Dean, Bryce Huff, Kenyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Aziz Ojolari, Jahad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter, Jalex Hunt, Byron Young, Eli Ricks, Keely Ringo, Reed Blankenship. This is a team that is stacked on defense. And they're going to continue to do that, especially through the trenches. Who cares that you lose guys like Darius Slay, CJ Gardner Johnson, and Josh Sweat and Milton Williams this offseason? Who cares? Just reload in the draft like they do every year. Best GM of all time, Howie Roseman. Let's start the discussions. All right. Final pick. The Kansas City Chiefs. We knew this was going to happen. We knew they were going to take tackle. And when it got to this spot, Josh Simmons was the only one available left. And I'm like, yeah, makes sense. He was gearing up to possibly be the number one tackle taken, or just skill wise, before he got injured, before he had that knee injury. But if he didn't get injured, he might have gone in the top 10, like in that Kelvin Banks, Armand Membu range. What the heck? But, sorry. But he actually fell all the way down here, and I think Patrick Mahomes should be happy with that. This is an A pick because what else are you going to do here? At this spot, you need a guy that can help protect Patrick Mahomes. All right. Thank you for tuning in, and comment down your grades or your team's grade and what you're excited to see tomorrow. Coming out tomorrow, I will have a second round or maybe even a second and third round mock draft following the first round, so be tuned in for that. And it is currently 12:51 a.m. I'm ready to get ready for bed. So I'll see you guys later. Peace out.